Hello everyone, I've just been inside the AXA Training Centre, which you can see just behind me there, for the press conference previewing the Carabao Cup final this weekend. And it wasn't actually Jurgen Klopp the press was speaking to today, it was his assistant manager Pep Lijnders. He has done all the Carabao Cup previews this season, and he stepped up again, even though it's a final, it's the big one. He's been on the media duties today talking to him, but it's still been a really interesting one. I know Jurgen Klopp always gives us some really good lines, doesn't he? But Pep Lijnders himself is a very interesting guy, and always good to have him and a fresh face and someone else to talk to, something a little bit different. And that's what we got today, something different previewing this one. Now, I think the obvious place to start when you're talking about reviewing a press conference is to start with the team news, and we know there's some major concerns for Liverpool coming into this one, this trip to Wembley, and I'll just go through them now. Of course, the big ones with Salah, Nunez and Dominik, Szoboszlai. Now, Salah and Nunez, we know, have been battling slight muscle complaints since they featured at Brentford, and Szoboszlai, you know, he's had that recurrence of a hamstring injury. He was given an outside chance, wasn't he, of perhaps featuring in this game. So we got updates on all three, and unfortunately, nothing really concrete to say on that front. Nothing that's hugely encouraging, you have to say. All Pep Lijnders really could offer was that all three have a chance, but it's very much, the quote was, "We will see." It looks like, and it was exactly as Jurgen Klopp had said, really, that Liverpool are going to go day by day with these injuries and see how they progress. They are muscle injuries, so Liverpool have to be very, very careful. They don't want recurrences, which they've had recently with some different issues, and so they've got to be, with the muscle, it's so easy to pull it again, so they've got to take the time. And I think if there's going to be any risk involved, I don't think we'll see any of those three players involved, but it would be fantastic, of course, to have them involved in some way, even if it was just off the bench. I mean, imagine if you're in a tight game, which Wembley games against Chelsea do tend to be, don't they? If you could bring a Mohamed Salah or Darwin Nunez off the bench late to add real goal threat and pace, it'd be great to throw them in the mix late on, wouldn't it? So hopefully better news on them. And we also got a couple of more injury updates around the sort of more long-term injuries, players who we didn't expect would be in contention for the Carabao Cup final. And I'll just start with a few of those. So Curtis Jones, the talk from Lijnders was that he will be back around the international break, so that suggests, you know, maybe he could sneak in just before the international break, but would definitely be back after. He has got a high ankle sprain, it's now emerged. He sustained that at Brentford. It looked a nasty one, really, but we now got a rough date for when he's going to be back. And in terms of the rest, he said on Alisson and Trent Alexander-Arnold that they will be back after the international break, so no chance for them before. Seemingly rules them out of the game against Manchester City, doesn't it, which is a real shame and a blow, but they will be back after the international break. And he said similar for Jota, although we expect that is going to be a longer injury. Obviously, Jurgen Klopp said it's more like months than weeks, and the reports from Portugal were that Jota's looking at around a 2-month absence, which, you know, when you see someone go down with a knee injury, you almost think that feels like a little bit of a bonus, really. It was, you know, you're fearing that it's season over, maybe a 9-month absence. So it's looking like those reports in Portugal are roughly accurate, and hopefully we will see Jota back not too long after that international break, although we do expect, like I say, it's going to be more along sort of two months. And I think, you know, now we've got firm timelines on those players, and in terms of potential returns, I think it sort of suggests that it underlines to me, actually, the importance maybe for Liverpool of winning that FA Cup game that's coming up against Southampton. Now, if they do that, that will give them another FA Cup game to contest before the international break, and it actually will mean that the Everton game that they've got coming up will get pushed back, and I think that would be a bonus to Liverpool. It gives them only 2 league games they have to play before the international break. That would be Nottingham Forest and Manchester City, so you get rid of that third one, and also an FA Cup game, you have to say, it should offer more opportunities for rotation than a league game against Everton, and you would like to be facing Everton away. It's always a tough game for Liverpool. You would like to be facing them with a full squad, or as close to a full squad. You know, if Liverpool can get several players back for that game, I think it will be massive for them. So I think, you know, with those timelines on the injuries, underlines it's very, very important to beat Southampton in that game that's coming up at Anfield in midweek. Now, of course, it wasn't just injuries that Lijnders was talking about. There's all sorts to get into. I mean, I think he would have liked to talk about the game a little bit more, but there were bigger issues to talk about in this press conference, and we went through quite a few of them. And one of the big talking points was the transition that is coming up for Liverpool, the fact that Lijnders is leaving this summer along with Jurgen Klopp and his coaching staff, and that there's so much change coming at the club. And of course, Pep Lijnders was asked about that and the fact that Liverpool are facing a tricky period because it's been so much success, hasn't it, under Jurgen Klopp? It's been steady success. You know that you're always going to have a side that competes for trophies. So what comes next? It's real uncertainty and a difficult period for Liverpool. But I thought Lijnders gave a really, really good answer on this, and he talked about the quote I've got written down here was, what was the most difficult transition in this club? Shanks saying, "That's me," and then Paisley stepped up, and I thought that showed really great knowledge of Liverpool Football Club, which, you know, for a manager or a coach who is, you know, he's not a Liverpool man, he's not a Scouser, for him to know all about that history and to have researched it, I think is fantastic. And he showed a real depth knowing that Paisley was the man that stepped up, and he knew that Paisley was a very different type of character. He also talked about that he was a very different type of manager to Bill Shankly, and yet that transition still worked, and I thought it was really good knowledge of the club and shows how much he loves Liverpool. Really interesting answer. And he also cited a few more recent examples. He talked about when Guardiola left Barcelona and Tito Villanova came in and still won the league straight after that. And he talked about his own experiences when he was a coach at Porto, and Villas-Boas stepped down after winning 4 trophies, and he was replaced by Vitor Pereira, and still Porto won the league the season after that. So he obviously thinks that FSG have got the capability to do the right thing after Jurgen Klopp, and they're not looking for a replacement for Jurgen Klopp. He was adamant about that. He said Jurgen's irreplaceable, but he said you can still get a good manager who can keep the success going, and obviously he thinks that Fenway Sports Group are more than capable of doing that. So you know, I thought it was really, really interesting answer from Lijnders, that one, and as I said, it shows his depth of knowledge, not just about Liverpool but across football as a whole. And I followed that up with something he talked about as well, as you know, in that transition with the fact that he was also leaving. I followed that up with a question about his future. Now we know that Pep Lijnders isn't going to be the man to step up to replace Jurgen Klopp. It's been Liverpool have been kind of firm about that. So I asked the question, well, why is that? Why is that? You know, why would he not be the man to step up? Did he throw his hat in the ring? Because that's something that's been touted for a while, isn't it? That he might be the man to step into Jurgen's shoes, but we know that won't happen. So my question to him was, you know, did you throw your hat in the ring? And I must say, he was kind of evasive around that, around whether he wanted the job or whether he wanted to be the one to step into Jurgen's shoes. But one thing he did reveal was that he's had offers in the past to go and manage elsewhere, to take the top job at another club. But his preference was to see this job through with Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool. And the quote he says was, "My heart always said yes. My loyalty to Mike Gordon and Jurgen Klopp said no," which I think shows you that, you know, he's going to be a manager that's in demand this summer. I think he's going to have no struggles to get a job out there and go back into management after the great work he's done at Liverpool. But it's interesting that he absolutely wanted to see this job through, and he wanted to be there with Jurgen Klopp to the end, and he's absolutely got that, hasn't he? And hopefully a successful end to this season is coming, and a successful end to this era at Liverpool Football Club. Like, as I say, he probably wanted to talk more about the final in this press conference. He did touch on a bit of Chelsea's threat and Cole Palmer, but being, you know, singling him out as a real dangerous player for Chelsea. But it was the bigger issues that were really the talking points here, and I suppose that's no surprise. Even though this is a massive game, it's all part of this big Jurgen Klopp farewell tour, isn't it, at the end of the day, and Liverpool's push for a quadruple, and those are the big issues that Liverpool fans are thinking about at the moment. You know, so it's no surprise really. There was no questions on the actual specifics, or very few questions on the specifics of the game that are coming up. That is the nature of journalism, isn't it? The nature of the questions that we asked. But still a fascinating press conference, I thought, from Pep Lijnders. Always great to speak to him. So I'm going to wrap my press conference review up there. Obviously a huge game coming this weekend against Chelsea. I will be back for my post-game review, and hopefully we're talking about Liverpool getting the first trophy of the season on board, a big win over Chelsea, and then looking forward to, well, the rest of the season, and can they do the quadruple? Let me know what you thought of the press conference in the comments. Always good to hear your thoughts on things. What was the interesting lines you thought that Pep Lijnders spoke about, and what are you thinking ahead of Sunday? Are you really nervous about those injuries, or do you think Liverpool are going to beat Chelsea? Always great to hear from you, and if you could please like and subscribe as ever, always helps to get the videos out there, and I really appreciate everyone who leaves kind comments and likes and subscribes. It's great to have you on board with me. Really enjoying doing these videos. So all that leaves for me to say is that I'll see you after the Carabao Cup final, and hopefully a Liverpool victory.